Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Grand Arena prep video. I didn't do one for 3v3 just because I simply wasn't feeling up to it, but I was feeling up to it today for 5v5. We're going to start by going over attacking squads for offense. I think you should probably keep on offense defensive squads that are pretty much better off on the defensive end, and then flex that could be whatever you choose. And that's where a lot of the strategy is. This is from an endgame perspective, so just keep that in mind. It is largely focused around which datacron set to use from 15 and 16, especially because 16 is a very complicated set. So let's get into it. Starting off with offensive squads, Slicker, Special Forces. I think you got to stick with that cron. That's one of the dominant crons from set 15. It's amazing. You pretty much cheese anything with it, as I said, but it is on offense because if you put it on defense, people know you have to kill Slicker first, and it's usually not that difficult to do. Next we got Bane, and he's a classic, and you don't have to have Sith Empire Trooper. A lot of people use Sith Assassin, which I think is kind of confusing. It's R9, but it stealths itself. You want to use something that either die fast or protect Bane for a little bit. And for the attacker cron, if I don't specify anything different, I'm meaning the wordy one, the one where you attack twice when you attack at a turn, or when you attack at a turn, you do true damage. If you crit, you attack twice. That's the one. And Bane crits a lot. It does a ton of damage, especially when it's basic too. So that's going to be an amazing cron for him, and I don't know what the limit is. I don't know how much he can actually kill. I used him in 3v3 a lot to kill Supreme Leader Kylo, and maybe that's still on the table in 5v5. I don't know. And then for JML, I put what he's usually going to be able to counter. I don't think he'll be able to counter JMK this season, and I didn't specify a cron here because it's kind of a toss-up. He's got a lot of attackers. He is a tank. And then usually you can add a support or something like Hermit Yoda. You could go with a support cron, but you only have the one. Support, usually they're not doing a lot of debuffs. It's just that buff immunity based on your own buff. So I think the attacker cron is actually amazing here because you are calling people to assist a lot with all these characters. They are all calling people to assist one way or another, and then the lead is constant assist. So that's my vote. The tank cron, not going to be as useful anymore. And whatever abilities you use, I think you should definitely go for high protection. And throughout this whole video, I'm not going to be talking as much as the level 3 abilities. I know the offensive buffs for light side is probably the best, and then like speed up or dots or tank revive is good on the dark side. But it's hard to get everything you want in the cron set, so I'm not going to specify all that as much. Just kind of know those are the good ones. So next up, right as I said that, I put this for Sith Eternal. So for him, he's an attacker, but he doesn't crit a lot. He doesn't attack out of turn a lot. So I just think a speed up level 3 is probably good for him. This is like the whole supporting cast of like 2 lifters juicing him up, disposable tank, pre-taunting tank. Of course, you can use him with Bane, which is very expensive, but if you are going for a level 6 for him, then an attacker cron. I wouldn't go for the bulk cron if you're soloing. If you are using this approach, maybe that bulk cron, which means a set 15 health and protection cron. But I don't know. Sith Eternal is not really super interesting to me this season, and I am not a fan of making defensive teams with Sith Eternal. Although if you were, you might want to you'd probably have to combine Malicos's team, like Sith Empire, with him to make it viable. Next up, we got Afra, and I'm really excited to use this. This is going to be very strong, so Afra goes right away. You can start with increasing cooldowns, or you could give out the buff and try to get buff immunity on people. It just depends. I think it's situational. But Afra is a support. I think, yeah, she's a support. And then so is 000, and 000 has his own cron. So they're going to be inflicting plenty of debuffs and juicing up BT1. Darth Vader, I think, is a great slot in here. And then IG-88 is an attacker, so that's 3 attackers to get tons of damage ramped. And when I say support cron, the default is the wordy one. I don't think any of the other ones are super worthwhile. I think you should just be going for all the wordy crons. And that's going to juice up their crit damage an insane amount. BT1 is going to be absolutely crazy. I think the level 3, if you have an option, you can go for the dots for Vader, or you can go for speed up. So Maul, I think the Gar Saxon Kron is a little bit of a distraction. I think you kind of just want the attacker Kron for this, meaning the true damage on attacking out of turn, because it'll give them even more damage. And they attack out of turn a lot of times. Maul won't do it as much, but Canarus is an attacker, Imperial Super Commander is an attacker, and then if you have Django on this team, he's an attacker. I don't personally use this team, but that's just my thought. You could go with the Gar Saxon and a tank Kron as well, but that's just my thought. I think that'll be crazy. And then Phoenix. I'm not sure how exactly reliable it's going to be against Riva, but the Sabine Kron is not going to hurt. However, she is an attacker, and that means you'd have to use the attacker level 6, and she is the only attacker on this team. And this is the endgame comp. On the GoTanks account, I use Zeb instead of Sabine, but endgame, you definitely want Sabine. And there's a couple places you could put Sabine. You could put her with Bow, and we'll get to that. But this could definitely help that Riva counter. I think starting off, if you get the first turn, if they all have tenacity up, you want to just do armor shred, but getting her turns and then having everyone assist, definitely not going to hurt there. And Phoenix, otherwise, I'm excited to see what they can actually pull off. Bad Batch, this is one that is still wanting to use set 15, so the damage reduction for Galactic Republic, that's not going to help Omega, unfortunately, but it'll help all the others. Hopefully she'll be stealthed enough. And then the Tech Kron. Pretty simple. I haven't got to use them a ton, but that's what you want to use them for. I don't really like them on defense, unless you put them with Queen Amidala. I think a lot of people have had the opportunity to farm Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, and even if you don't have that Whale Kron, they're the better ones to put with Queen Amidala. So I haven't listed that comp in this video, I don't believe. And then Admiral Radis, this is for offense only. My vote is for the support Kron. There's only one attacker, it's Jin. I mean, you could replace K2 with this lineup with an attacker, but there's not too many Rogue One attackers. The supports you have to juice up through debuffs are Cassian and Radis. Radis is only doing debuffs through buffs, if that makes sense. Sorry about that. But Cassian does a lot of debuffs on his own, so Jin's going to get juiced up. Ras is going to get more potency, and Cassian's going to get more potency, and then the tanks will get more defense, so it's going to be cool. Then Bounty Hunters. So I spent a lot of time thinking about this. I think the tank, yes, you could go with that, but the double attack for attackers is going to get you your payout very fast, especially with Zam in there. Zam is an attacker, Mando is an attacker, and Fennec Shand is an attacker. Now, I don't use where I play Fennec Shand to counter Lord Vader really anymore at all. If I do, it's one's left alone and is undersized. But she is just a supercharger of the the contract. So you'll get a lot more hits, get the contract faster, and snipe someone out pretty quick. This will actually be a pretty useful, pretty handy team. Wampa, pretty straightforward. You want the Wampa Kron on level 9, you want the attacker, and then you want the dots, if you can manage it. It's kind of hard to get all three, but if he's going to be viable, that makes him way more so. And this might be the only example of me recommending the Riposte attacker Kron. So this team is all support and one attacker. So support. So you might think support Kron, but I disagree. Because what does a support Kron juice up for attackers? Crit damage. And Dart Trooper does not do crit damage unless he has advantage. That kind of rhymed. But he does attack out of turn a lot. So I think you use the Riposte Kron. First turn for Dark Trooper, you use a special, and then every time he's attacking out of turn, he's hitting under protection. I think it's going to be insane, and Troopers might see more use. That's not going to help against something like Lord Vader or something, which they are in off chance counter to Lord Vader, if you're an expert. But definitely, I think that's one place where I'm excited to use Riposte. Night Sisters. The key here, so at the top end where you're really using them the most is to counter Jabba, sadly. There are other uses. I think like CLS they're great against. And if you are countering CLS, you don't want Talia or a flimsy Night Sister. You want the zombie. But what I put this is, I'm not an expert on the Java counter, but what I know is you do need people to die. Even if Talia or like your 5th isn't gear 12, gear 13, or capable of having datacrons, I think it's still worth a mention. Because you want people to die. If you have like a couple dead, then you can get an infinite turn meter loop going with auto basic on Java. So again, I'm not an expert on it. I don't have examples. I did it in 3v3 once, even though I wasn't modded great for it. But you want them modded for health. Don't mod them for a ton of protection. Marin, you want her to have protection and tenacity, so she's not getting the thermals. And when she does, they're not doing as much damage to her. Massage Omicron helps as well, which I don't have. So anyway. Tuscan Raiders. The support cron is what I put here, although I'm not entirely convinced. Gives speed up, gives a buff, so they're giving out a lot of debuffs. And same with Chieftain, has an opportunity to give out a lot of debuffs. I do not think, from experience in 3v3, I don't think the buffs or the dots that come from the leadership count towards that support cron. And I think it's probably for the best. That would just crash the game, because you have like 50 dots, and then if that multiplies like 500% crit damage for each character, Tuscan Warrior would just nuke everybody. But that is an option. Another option is the attacker one, because Warrior is an attacker and attacks out of turn frequently and would do a lot more damage. They're just going to be pretty strong. I wouldn't recommend tank cron at all, because I don't think they even have any tanks. Yeah, I don't have any tanks. Anyway, and then Geos, I think you have the option attacker or support cron. Soldier and Spy are the ones that are attackers. Brood and Poggle are support. And Poggle does do debuffs, every turn. When he's assisting, he's going to do an ability block, and they both give out buffs, so you could stack a good bit with the support cron. Either approach, the support cron or the attacker cron, it's geared towards making the attackers do more damage. I still think it's more of a cleanup team from my perspective, at least. And teams down here aren't necessarily like lower ranked or anything. This isn't a ranking. It's just like showing what teams I think and what comps go in offense. So here I got a Palpatine cron, and the easy one to look at and single out is the Visa Smart cron, the Long Healer cron for cooldown reduction and a bunch of good stuff. I think you have the option for that or the attacker cron, because Star Killer's attacking out of turn a lot. You could even use the support cron, but Mara Jade is an attacker, so her debuffs don't count towards that. It's just Palpatine's. So really a lot of options there, and you can't get everything you want with this set, so it's good to have a team with several options. You could also get creative. I don't know. In TW, people use Trail Lead a lot. I don't think it's worth combining that. I did see a Savage lead in 3v3 with Jedi Consular. And Jedi Consular can revive non-Jedi, and he can only revive non-Jedi. But if you have Jedi Consular cron, you can't use Visa Smart cron. It's not the worst thing, but it's an option there that's not really shown because I can't put 6 there. But yeah, CLS is going to be an awesome use for the attacker cron. Look, attacker, support, attacker, 4 attackers, and they're assisting all the time. So they're going to just like, once you do an attack and they start assisting, they're never going to stop. So they have a lot of damage potential. I do have them slotted for offense right now, or the attack, just bringing them on attack, not sending them on defense, but that could change. Maybe they are good on defense. But it's been a while since I've felt comfortable putting them on defense myself. And then Aiden, also kind of, I wish she could do better, but Radis still really has her numbered, even with her cron. So I think on offense is best. If you have a deep roster, then you can run 3 Imperial Trooper teams now, because TIE Fighter Pilot is an Imperial Remnant. And these are just kind of the leftovers that I don't have on the normal Imperial Trooper team, and that I don't have on the Dark Trooper Moff Gideon team. And this is kind of a fringe option. Hux lead with First Door TIE Pilot Omicron and Special Forces level 9. I think this could have some value. I personally won't run it. And then Santa Staros, there might be some kind of loop you can get going, but I think Stormtrooper Han, Tank Cron, maybe damage reduction. probably not great. I think probably damage reduction would be the way to go for this. And that also helps out Cara Dune. Cassian is there if you want to run the support Kron to give it a lot of debuffs, and then Rolo does the damage as an attacker. Sinistaris is also an attacker, but she's not a heavy damage dealer herself. But I don't know. I don't know how well Stanistaros is going to do, but I wanted to give at least a nod to her. And she is only offensive squads, and that is it for offensive squads. I know it took a while. And now we're moving on to defensive squads, and it is a lot shorter than offensive squads, so it won't take as long. Rey, the jury's out for me on what you actually want to set with her. I think you could use a support cron, use a bunch of support characters that do a lot of debuffs, kind of like we saw with the offense ramping thing for resistance instead of 14. Cal Kestis seems like a natural fit. Sortie can also do some because she's support and will give out buffs, which turn to buff immunity. And Echo is an option. I mean, Dash is an option. Captain Rex is an option. There's a lot of options there, so you could do that if you wanted to. You could also go the Jedi Consular route. If you do have Jedi Consular Kron, it's pretty good, and it's like great for reviving this team because none of them are Jedi. So you can have a lot of chances to come back. Ben Solo is causing some revives, preventing deaths, so you could ramp a lot through that. However, my vote would be for the damage increase. I don't really see a tank Kron. An attacker Kron, you could. They just don't have a lot of attacks out of turn, and Ben is not really critting, and Rey is using her Lifeblood or a Whirlwind or an ultimate that doesn't crit. So that's my thought there. Zori, standard Finn team. You could have Holo, you could have Rose. I'm actually probably going to use Rose because I have that Omicron. And that makes it better in either case because if you're doing the support Kron or the attacker Kron, it's focused on output from attackers. Poe's an attacker, Resistance here, Finn's an attacker, Finn's a tank, and Zori's the only support. I wouldn't think that the exposes count for that support thing, so I would lean towards an attacker Kron because they're also attacking out hurt a lot, but we'll see. If the expose does count towards it, that could be pretty cool. And then this one, this is apparently pretty broken. I came across it in 3v3, but I think, like a version of it. I saw Rex and Kyle Katarn, but I think I just used C each time because I was left, like I had C left over and I just like linked Kyle Katarn so it couldn't crit. But Saul starts off doing a ton of debuffs. He does like 15 for each enemy with those like bomb things. So it's a ridiculous amount of crit damage for Kyle Katarn. Rex can add to it. Cassian can add to it because their support. Not completely necessary. You could use Cara Dune or whatever the normal lineup is, Chirrut in there, I don't know, just to keep it alive, to protect Kyle Katarn. Baze Malbus is my tank of choice if you do have him. Yeah, Kyle Katarn goes off. He's the only one that's an attacker really on this team, but he starts doing crazy damage. Apparently, I haven't really seen him. And then Trench, this one I am looking forward to. And TW got to use this. And my Dooku got whirlwinded by Rey. But Vidseal told me that his Dooku is countering for like 900,000. You definitely want the wordy support Kron. Watt if you can swing it. For the level 3, I mean, speed up would be just perfect. But Jango and Dooku should just be insane. And then the supports, there's 3 of them. They're juicing up their own potency, which in turn lets them do more debuffs to juice up their potency even more in the crit damage. So this one is going to be very good. Do not keep Trench on the bench for this GAC. Qui-Gon Jinn, I think you still want set 15 damage reduction across the whole board. They are, I mean, Cam and Jedi Knight Anakin are attackers. Qui-Gon and Shakti are support. Yeah, she's not a healer. Mace Windu is a tank. And I don't know. I don't think you have many debuffs to go around on this team, so I don't think you want the support Kron. You could go with an attack Kron if you don't have damage reduction available, but just going to be great. And then Gungans, another set 15 stalwart. You either want to use Boss Nass Kron or Jar Jar Binks Kron. I finally have Jar Jar. I don't have any Omicron, sadly, and I don't think I'll get any before the start of Grand Arena, but definitely send them on defense. I think it could change if we have an easy counter then emerge. Then I guess. Yeah, I was thinking, did Trench beat them? But no, they crushed Trench. We'll see. I don't know. But for now, defense is the way to go. If you have the Palcron, I mean, that's an obvious choice for this team. But I still think you want to use the protection up, or the protection disruption. And then if I think Barris is a great add-on in there, I might use Luminara because I do have a Relic 7 and I do have a Crom or something. But Cup fits in this team pretty well. This will go for next season more so probably. But the Cup Cron, he's pretty protected and he can do a lot of stuff as long as he's protected. And this team really gets that done pretty well. So just look out for that. I don't know how it goes. The last two slots are pretty inherently flexible. That's it for defense. Not as long as the offensive squads. And now last but certainly not least, we have the flex squads. Not quite as long as attackers, but not as short as defense. So JMK, no, it shouldn't be a surprise. Set 50, still the way to go. You want the protection up disruption. Protection disruption level 6, Padme level 9. This team can either go on offense or defense. I mean, defense is extremely strong. The only reason to really bring on offense is because if there's something that you don't think you could beat without it, and you're committed to full clearing. But yeah, not too much to say about that. It's nothing new. For Leia, so you can go with the support Cron or tank Cron. There's a bunch of different options, for her lineup. I mean, these three are pretty solidified. Drogon and R2. And I always have Radis and Jin because I'm not always using them on their own. But you could have like a lot of tanks. You could have the Stormtrooper Han Cron in there with Stormtrooper Han. You could have Old Ben. You could have Kanan. You could have a lot of options and have the tank stuff. I think damage reduction might be better for the tank. I don't know if you really want grit because you do have a lot of protection recovery on the team. You also could do the attacker Cron, but you only have really Drogon as an attacker, so that's why I don't really recommend that. Support Cron, I'd recommend it if you have at least one other or additional attacker in your lineup and one additional support, which is the case here. So Radis is a support, Jin's an attacker, so Jin and Drogon could be juiced up. R2 does some debuffs, I guess not plenty, but he does do some. Radis will be giving out that buff immunity, so you are giving a lot of crit damage to these two. So that could be great as well. Jabba, there's a lot of options. There's probably more options on this, like legit options, than most other teams. So Grit's an option. So Chrysanthemum will be super chunky, and the protection up will be insane for him. You can't kill him with dots. You can't hurt him with exposes. So that's a great thing. The long attacker one with double attacks, that's going to apply to Boosh and Skiff. So they're getting extra attacks, which means extra thermals, and that's also going to apply to Embo because he is an attacker. The support is probably the third option for me because, I mean, you only have so many supports. How many support Crons have I recommended in this video? Like, you're just going to need... He does do plenty of debuffs with the blind and the thermals, and it's going to juice up these guys, but I think probably attacker or grit is the way to go. Just depends what you really have and what has the best stats for them. I mean, I think you want just survivability stats, defense, or protection, or health, in that order. Defense, then protection, then health. Lord Vader, I already had the Maul team shown, and I don't know how viable Lord Vader is going to be without Maul. The dots are definitely helping him. I think you want the attacker Kron, because most of this team that I'm showing is attackers: Darth Vader, Maul, and Lord Vader. Darth Vader and Lord Vader do a lot of dots, damage over time, so they're going to get a lot of protection up. Piet, if you're not going to run a trooper team, is great to help. Mark Lord Vader gain turn meter himself, do days, lots of stuff. And Royal Guard's pretty standard. I mean, there's options here. There's Thrawn. You could also use a set 15 with Ninth Sister. Or I'm not as convinced as on the First Order Stormtrooper Kron is anymore. But you could... I think that the dot is probably the best for him. It makes him really hard to deal with on his own. And I got tons of holds at 3v3 with him. So Supreme Kylo Datacron, meaning him as the character to level 9, where he just juices himself up a ton. I think that's more worthy of a flex spot. And usually you want the long level 6. But the Retribution actually charges up the ultimate really fast. So that's something to consider too. Like, it makes it more Bane proof, not entirely, but Bane does AoEs, Then they can counter and charge up ultimate a ton so Slicker can't be hurt and juice himself up really fast. So if you're putting him on defense, I think you need the Slicker Cron. Bo-Katan, I think, is going to benefit massively from the attacker Cron because she is an attacker. He's a tank, the healer. But if you have Sabine on the team, she's an attacker. And OG Bo is even an attacker. She's not doing a lot of damage. But I think Sabine, this is a great spot for her. Because I think her taking bonus turns means more on this team than Phoenix. Because Phoenix, you can kind of route people, get on a turn meter train, and they never get a chance. But with this, you know, you can get out, throw out some staggers, some armor shreds. I'm really liking Sabine with her Mandalorian comrades under Bo-Katan. So I'm excited to see how that works. But I think OG Bo is mandatory just because of the extra protection she gives out. Malicos, I mean, 5th slot is flexible. You could have Maul there if you want to go crazy. You could have Crew. I wouldn't recommend Starkiller. I mean, Starkiller, the main thing he's there for is if you fight Rey, you dispel everything with the AoE. But Starkiller's unique will not be active. At least it's good unique. I think you want Attacker Cron here. I mean, Support Cron is also something too. I mean, Seer and Cal are supports and they're giving out debuffs. But that is more like a long-term approach to a match. And Malicos is really fast. Gets out there, does tons of damage. And the Attacker Cron with true damage and double attacking, he already attacks multiple times. Like, it's going to be even more and just close it out super fast. So I vote Attacker Cron, but Sport's not the worst either. Reva, I think you still want to stick with the level set 15, level 9 for Reva. And if you want to go set 16, probably, I don't know, like maybe attacker or support. There's only one support character on this team because Seven Sisters is a healer. I don't know. Still stick with set 15 and we'll see next season. General Skywalker, this looks like I'm saying something else, but it's going for damage reduction. So the damage reduction for Galactic Republic is what I'm going for there, and it's still really strong. He's going to draw something good. You could take him on offense, take something out that's pretty strong. But that's kind of old news, and he's still really good. I mean, if you don't have Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan yet, Queen Amidala could slot on this and help on offense, take down Rays or something, but yeah, it's up to you. Malgus, I put him on flex because he does have a lot of options, and I think you probably want to tank Kron and him. So there's an argument for grit and there's an argument for damage reduction. Damage reduction is great because it affects Malgus and Malik. But Malik is like the inspiration for grit. He has built-in grit. So you don't really need grit for him. But Malgus would do a lot more damage with his bunny hop. And with damage reduction, they would just stay alive longer. I think if you're on offense and you're trying to take on a team that does do a lot of damage, you want damage reduction. If you want to take out one target that has a lot of HP, I guess grit. Support as well can be pretty rewarding, like every team, because Bastila spams debuffs, and then Marauder and Darth Revan are going to stack their crit damage a crazy amount. I mean, Bastila does so many debuffs. So those are options as well. It just depends. It's really up to you. This set's so flexible. I think it's so nice and wide open. You don't have to be worried about having the perfect thing on everything. Just focus on those level 6s. Protection Disruption for the standard Padme team with Commander Ahsoka. I don't even run this. I think this is pretty hard to find people that have Cat but don't have JMK. It feels like JMK is easier to get than Cat. But I think I left this from last time. So for a dash team, you want the support Kron, I think. You're going to juice up... dang it, Hondo's a support. Dang it. I forgot. I thought he was an attacker. That might change things. I mean, Nest is the only attacker then. But Dash is a support. Does a ton of debuffs. So that's kind of the thought behind it. Hondo, I'm not sure where to put him instead. But Scoundrels... So I wish I could sort by Scoundrel and Attacker. Bam's an attacker, but he's not really doing a ton of damage. Although the rest have homes. I mean, if you want Han and Chewie with this team, that's something. But yeah, he might not be as good. In theory, he's great, but he doesn't have a ton of options. I mean, Nest might be just plenty of an attacker, honestly, but I don't know. Treya, flex, I moved it from defense this time just because you might need it to take down something strong. I think you want the support cron because you also want the Nihilist cron. Nihilist is a support, Treya is a support, so you're doing plenty of debuffs between the two of them. And then Savage, even though he feels like a tank, he's an attacker, so he juices up his crit damage. Same with Talon, not that it matters too much, but they're going to be good. Grievous, I think attacker cron because you got Grievous as an attacker, Stap, and B1. B1 doesn't crit, but they attack at a turn, so you're going to get some true damage there. And it's just plenty of damage for the team. Definitely not support. They don't have any support characters, so that's at least one team you're not going to want to use support on. I mean, you can make an argument for a tank cron because B1 is also a tank, so damage reduction would probably be what I'd vote for there. Stacking protection, or it's not going to stack a ton of times. It's an option. And then last but not least, this is a new team. It's like a whole new team because you can have TIE Fighter Pilot in there. My vote is, once again, support cron because you have Moff Gideon as a support and Scout Troopers as a support. So it's unfortunate you can't juice up Scout Troopers crit damage, but she does a lot of debuffs, which can power up Death Trooper and TIE Fighter Pilot. I think Stormtrooper is the one to drop here because you don't need another tank. Dark Trooper Moff Gideon is already just a complete beast already. So you want to juice up those two attackers, and you want to remod your TIE Fighter Pilot if you have him like me and have just thrown crap 6-dot mods on him just because he's a pilot. But yeah, so I'm going to have to remod mine. Just keep that in mind. As long as he's R5. Well, I mean, he could be R3 and still work. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this season. I'm going to miss the tail end of it because I'm going on a cruise. But it's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun season. I'm really looking forward to it. Anyway, thanks so much for watching this one. I hope you enjoy. I hope you have a great season. And I'll see you next time.